Hello there, my name is Louis, aka Louis the Frenchy Monette. Obviously, you're watching Ready, Set, Multiplex. For tonight's episode, well, Dave needed a little day off, and I do understand him, life happens. So that being said, I got a special co-host and also guest for later on, Mr. Caleb Coho. How are you today, sir?
I am doing great. I'm excited to be here. Finally made it to Ready Set Multiplex, so
Yes, sir.
I'm excited to be here.
Well, thank you very much for saying yes in advance. Let's go straight into it. The match we're covering today was the barn burner itself, concept of a hamburger versus second reel, the rematch for those teams, and also going for the belt. Concept of trying to defend their title. Let's see what happened. So first off, before it all started, we knew we were going to be in a hell of a match because Caleb Boatman took way too much caffeine for his own good. So
Oh yeah, absolutely. Title match Boatman is a sight to see.
Yeah, and some of his jokes landed, some just fell flat on his face.
You win one, you lose one.
And Caleb was showboating a bit too much right off the bat. He's like second reel 5-1, concept 5-1. He was predicting the future, but he meant to say 5-0. Round one, it was a good round. You can see their strengths, but at the same time, Thomas was carrying the team. If I can permit myself, it shows the unbalance in their team personally.
Yeah, I think that first round is where each player individually gets a chance to shine and show what they know in a team setting. And I think Thomas really came out swinging. He had a really good round one. Whereas Matt is usually the person who's on top of things. He hits a lot of the questions we'll ask him. I think he just kind of started out slow and picked up over the course of the match.
Yeah, and like if we go like fast between questions, it was a back and forth. Question one, concept 2-1, then 4-2, but then they tie it back up for second reel at question 4. So it kept going back and forth. And from then on, I didn't know who's going to win. It was really, really tight. Did you had an inkling on how this is going to go on for round one, or you had no choice?
I did not expect this level of performance out of second reel coming in the first round. I figured the concept was going to do really well. They're the champions. They beat my team, Apocalypse Now, that I was managing at the end of last year by knockout. It was a brutal loss for us. So we knew that they were a great team. But I personally have also played second reel in the ring, so I know how good they are as well. So I wasn't really underestimating either team. But I think the concept as an undefeated team was already having a really daunting presence coming into that round one. And so second reel just being able to match was really impressive.
And the concept, this is a team I know less about because, I'm pretty new at Multiplex. But this is their title defense? Their first, second?
It's their first title defense. But this is a team that, if you look at the history behind the two competitors, Jake Marangoni spent a season and a half fighting to get that title and pulled it off in one night, picking up both titles, both by knockout, which was a huge achievement for Jake. And Michael, in a different promotion, he used to be Paul Oyama's teammate, and they went undefeated 9-0, defending the belt until Paul retired and stepped away. So Michael stepping back into teams competition with Jake. There was the expectation of Jake and Michael are going to go get another belt, and they did it. But then the question was, can they defend it? And that's what this match was all about.
So they had the pedigree, the team might be a bit newer, but they still had the pedigree. It's not the first time being that kind of title pressure, and it shows. They kept their cool. Although sometimes you can see, they're rushing into certain things, but they always seem to be able to meet in the middle and get out the answer for the most part.
Absolutely.
Although round one, they did miss a lot, though. I was a bit surprised. And it still gave the chance to the concept to have a slight lead. But there was some back and forth, but some easy misses as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there were some surprising misses on both sides, but mainly the concept with Jake and Michael. I think that round one in general is not the most insane round one in terms of difficulty, but I think the nerves hit you, especially in round one. In that setting, you have to get through the first round, and then you start to calm down and focus more on the match at hand. So I don't blame them for their misses, either of any of the four, but it's understandable.
In your opinion, do concept and second reel actually do well in round one, or this is kind of their weakness in general?
I would say in general, round one is the hardest round to master as a team because you have to play individually. It has to show how good each player is on their own. And I think both teams have done a solid job. The concept usually does a really impressive job at round one. Second reel is 50-50. It depends on the match, but like, I think in this situation, they kept pace with each other. And that's all they really needed to do was second reel needed to be close, keep it close coming out of round one.
Yeah, and if I look at the specific questions as well, like the musicals, the question 7 on musicals, I just watched Newsies the day before, so I knew it. But that's a reach back. Like before Disney Plus, I didn't even know Newsies existed with Christian Bale.
Yeah, fair.
And the animation one, the Shrek 2 question I was surprised when no one got it. And I think their manager too was a bit pissed that no one got it.
Oh, absolutely. Cody is a very fandom centric competitor and manager and mindset. And Jake is one of the most accurate fandom players, but one of the most unluckiest. He's 1 in 3. But he knows fandom, but he's not the biggest animation person. That's something that the concept has really had as a chip on their shoulders. They're not very good as a team at animation. And second reel, before they were second reel in Warzone, they played one match in season 1 fandom as a different team name. I think it was Truth About Chaos, and they did extremely well. But they didn't stick around long enough for us to really get a grasp of what they know. So when a fandom question comes up in round one with 4 people who are not wholly fandom-centric competitors, it's always interesting. So I do not blame I don't blame any of them for missing that. That is a harder fandom question.
Yeah, and fandom itself, a general moviegoer that is in Warzone could have some fandom knowledge, but fandom is so specific, it goes into the minutia of it. It's harder to retain that kind of information, so I can't blame them.
Absolutely. When it comes to Warzone, it's about how broad your knowledge is about many films, and with fandom, it's about how deep your knowledge about a select group of topics can go. If you're a studier, but you'll benefit in both leagues, but especially in fandom. So seeing fandom questions come up in Warzone 9 times out of 10, most people can maneuver them, especially if they're the fringe fandom categories, because those are like Disney, your Pixar, your DreamWorks, your Planet of the Apes, stuff like that are categories of franchises that people think of without thinking of them as being geek, whereas the geek categories mixed with the fringe is what makes fandom a thing. So that's I usually give the benefit to most people when they get a fringe fandom question in Warzone.
What is your opinion of what's your definition of fringe? Because I've seen other leagues have different fringe stuff. What falls into fringe?
So for fringe, I define the fringe of fandom as being anything that's not like your core geek, inner geekdom sort of thing. So like not Star Wars, not Star Trek, your MCU, your Marvel, your DC, your DCU, Wizarding World, and Lord of the Rings. I consider those 8 your core categories that every geek player like knows and studies. And then every extra thing we have in fandom that makes it fandom is like your Pixar, your Disney's, your DreamWorks. We have Bond, Jurassic Park, Planet of the Apes, stuff like that. YA dystopias new this year. So there's like a bunch of extra stuff that there is definitely a fandom for or a following for that makes that our fringe area. And most people who come to fandom that wouldn't normally play in geek come because of the fringe categories.
Okay, but and also in the teams, it must be interesting because you got like probably one player's better at the geek things. You got it with someone in the fringe. You have a pretty solid team,
Absolutely.
You can balance the difficulty levels of the players.
I think the best fandom team we have is the current champions at that specific thing, where Caleb Boatman, very fringe-centric competitor. He knows his Disney very well, his Pixar very well, and Scully is good at all of it. He's gotten a lot better at the fringe, but he started out as a very core geek-centric player. Challenged Robert Parker in a different geek league for the title. So Scully knows his geek extremely well, and this season it's been all about for him proving that he knows all of it. And both of them are a really cohesive unit in that way.
Yeah, it showed for last match that was last week. It really shown they were a good team. And guys, if you're listening to this and you missed last week's episode, we actually had Scully as an interviewee, so go check that out. It was a very interesting interview. Let's go to round 2 now. Second reel, they spin 90s action, keep it. That is it's still in very narrow at the same time, but broad, because there's a lot of action movies in 90s.
Right.
Would you have went, or would you have like spinned away?
As a competitor in general for Warzone, I like decade and genre pairings, but that's not a decade genre pairing that I personally am super deep or knowledgeable on. But knowing Thomas and Queller, that is a thing that's a time period that they both know very well. Especially in that action, it seems like a bunch of movies that they remember and hold dear to them, with movies like, you get your Con Airs, your Speeds, your stuff like that. I think those are movies that they really like. So I think that was a smart thing for them to keep. I think when it comes to the championship level difficulty, they may not have totally expected the difficulties that they were getting, but I think they managed that category fairly well.
Yeah, they did, because they got 4 out of 5, and although get 1 point stolen from the second reel, from concept, but they still got 4 out of 5. So, they almost got perfect. There's a couple of questions you can see they were struggling, like the Con Air question. They had to go to multiple choice, but that was I couldn't pull it out. Like pinball was my last choice.
Right, and when it comes to Warzone multiple choice, some people just have that really good ability to guess if they don't know, or use context clues and stuff like that. I think going to multiple choice is never a weakness in any situation. It's more strategic of if you're not 100% confident in pulling the trigger on getting that answer. Multiple choice, if you're really good at just process of elimination and using the question in context with like the writers or the options, is a great way to still capitalize and get something out of that question. Yeah,
definitely. It's also it depends on the strength of the writer, right? Because to give multiple choice, all depending which question they write, sometimes it's hard. Like I've been writing a couple questions for Boltman, and when I have to do multiple choice, I really have to think about it, because if you repeat like the first, let's say if it's a 2-word choice for every for like A, B, C, D, if you repeat 2 words and those words don't go anywhere else, you're actually like giving a clue which is the good answer. So you give 2 multiple choice potentials instead of 4, etc. So it's hard writing those multiple choice answers.
Absolutely, especially if the answer's a number. Then if a question's like, we're looking for a number, there's almost no point in going to multiple choice unless you have an idea of a range of numbers in your head. But if they ever ask you for a year, 9 times out of 10, the multiple choice is just going to be the correct year, and then 2 years before and 1 year after, or 2 years after and 1 year before. You're going to get like a 4-year age or a 4-year range that you have to try and pinpoint.
The only advantage I see for you to go to multiple choice on, let's say, a release date question is if you're not sure what decade it's in, Right. If you have to pinpoint if it's in the 70s or 80s, unless you go like 79, 81, 82, then you're fucked.
Yeah, and also to minimize the amount of points that can be taken in a steal. That's another reason to go to multiple choice is if you're not confident, you go to multiple, then if you give it up, you're only giving up 1 point instead of 2, which can make the entire difference, especially in a game like this.
Yeah. So, the second reel, go up the lead, 13-6. Now, the concept spins, spinner's choice. They get released, they choose release dates, and I already hear Kirk yelling and screaming at the computer. I know he's not a fan of release dates. There's a couple people who don't like it. But concept seems to be their strength, and they smash it. They really do. They actually went up 16-13, so they get 10 points.
Yeah, I think in dates, Jake Marangoni is a competitor who is very, very good at movie release dates, and he's very good at pinpointing when and where a movie came out. He and Michael are both like Jake is a very, very good data player, and Michael is also a solid data player. So the two of them together, I think that was a really smart choice to take, especially with Second Reel, who are they remember more plot related information, what happens in a movie. So when you have to pinpoint exactly when a movie came out, I think that was a smart choice. I think Second Reel was able to maneuver any like there's steal opportunities as well.
Yeah, and I was about to say, it kind of shows how the concept studies. If you're that good in movie release dates and the more IMDb type information, it kind of shows a bit how you study, how you play the game, what's your core function as a competitor, and that's interesting to know, because that's something that people could really note on the concept. Because yes, it's a strength, but the more you know about an opponent, the more you know how they think, the more you can play against them.
Absolutely, that's a whole part of the game, is knowing what your opponent's good at, what your opponent's bad at, and taking risks on. We don't know what they're good at this, but like especially some of it. Sometimes you don't know what they're good at until you get into the match, because you find out something else. Like if you play round one, looking back at using the title match from last week of Mischief versus Necro as the manager of that match, when Mark Meyer gets to Pixar movie on a Disney animation question, that gives us a little bit of a hint that maybe Disney animation could also be a viable option for us in round two. We ended up going with Bond because that was the original strategy, but Disney could have totally worked as well.
Okay, so let's go to if I'm not mistaken, the new round, the study session round. It's new for this match, right, or this season?
It's new. It's new starting with this match, and this is the format going forward with this match for them.
Now, I want to have your opinion on that. How did that round come to be? And just talk about a bit the round three.
I think the round three came from just a general discussion between Cody and Boatman about how there's a lot of categories in realms and shows that implement deep cuts now. Fandom did it at the beginning with making that a round four, and they took the concept of doing a deep cut round but making it way more accessible, where each player picks a movie and you're going to get one question guaranteed from that movie. It's only like a 4-question round, but that makes it a quick round. Not necessarily a big round in terms of like point swings, but it's an important round that if you know what 4 movies to watch, you watch them so you can get that one question right. That'll make all the difference in a tight game like that. So I think it's a good round and a smart round.
And this is where studying your opponent comes in handy, because if you know what movies to choose and what movies not to choose, like let's say I choose, I choose Newsies, right? But not knowing it, my opponent have seen Newsies over 100 times since they're young, and I think I study, and then you have to study surface level because you know the movie by heart, because I don't know that about them. That could go against me.
Right, and also knowing what they love and also what they don't love. What's a movie that you have to know how willing your opponent is to watch a movie. If you want to pick the worst movie you can, that's long and deep and just not good, but you like it or you've seen it, so you know stuff about it. Is your opponent going to slog through that movie to get that 1 point, or will they give up that question because it's not worth their time to watch that movie? Cody Newberry would never allow his opponents to do that. Never in a million years would he allow them to give up a point because they didn't want to watch a movie. So that's the competitive nature of the game. But I think that round plays at least a little bit into strategy and head games of how well you know your opponent.
Well, it also gives an insight how you would play it, sir. So anyone watching, take notes. This is how. This is how.
Oh, I can play that. I can play that round many different ways. So,
but no, I completely agree. There's so many ways you can take it. I personally would just go with something I know by heart, and that's probably less accessible. That's one thing I'm wondering though. For that round, would foreign movies be allowed?
Yeah, I think when it comes down to what they are allowing to pick, I think they allow anything theatrically released in the United States. So if you pick something that had even like a limited theatrical release, if you picked like, I don't even have a good example, but like you pick like a Coen Brothers movie that only played in 3 theaters, but you have it on video on demand and no one else went and saw that movie and you can't find it, then it's like, hey, there you go. You find a movie that isn't in circulation anymore, but it had a theatrical release. There you go.
In that case, I would definitely choose a foreign movie, like a Russian movie and a Quebec movie that I both own and is freaking hard to get. And, that's why. But yeah, I was wondering if you could do that or not. So
I'm sure you probably can, but I don't want to speak out of turn. That's a Boatman Cody question for sure.
Hey, if Andrew Barr can pick Tin Man movies, you could probably pick anything, right?
The Tin Man movies are terrible, Andrew Barr. They are terrible.
All right, so yeah, we have Moon, Spider-Man, Sunshine, and a movie I've never heard in my life. It's a boy-girl thing.
Yeah.
Interesting picks. Moon and Sunshine I would have gotten good. Spider-Man, I seen it a couple of times. I'm not the biggest Spider-Man fan, to be honest.
That's fair. This is like a fandom film, so I have to watch it and know it. So when that question came up, I was like, oh, that's not nearly as deep cut as I thought it would be. But if you haven't seen the movie, then it's like, oh, then I have no idea what the answer to that question is. But for Jake and Michael, they adore the Sam Raimi Spider-Mans. Like, they love those movies to the point where I mean, I don't want to speak for them and say that I like the third one, but I know that they did a Sam Raimi Spider-Man trilogy like random match at some point. So like they love those movies. So that was a movie that you probably could have guessed if you like really knew them that they would pick and been able to watch it. But again, Eanes and Quell are also one-time fandom players, so I think they have at least a little bit of knowledge of Spider-Man.
And the last two, from the get-go, question 1, Concept is holding on to the lead 17 to 15. Even on question 3, Concept's 20 to 17. So Second Reel are always on the edge of like getting near, but can't quite get a grasp because everyone gets almost all the questions every time. So they're doing well, Second Reel. Just Concept is not letting go, is not failing, and they hold on to the lead. Now, at this point in your head, Concept, they're pretty much good gold, or do you still think that Second Reel had a shot?
At this point, it's only a 2-point game, and we have 2 entire rounds to go. It really comes down to the next round. The Revenge of the Wheel round is one of the most important rounds, especially how you play it. How smart can you play it? Do you approach it by giving your opponent the thing that you definitely don't want, so it's gone, and then then they have to give you something that you're less scared of? Or do you try and give your opponent the thing that they're absolutely the worst at and just try and bog them down, and then just take whatever blunt instrument to the head that they throw at you with whatever category they have to give you? It's a strategy game, and I think Cody Newberry is one of the best in the game at strategy.
Yeah, well, Cody and even the other manager, they both went the same strategy, right? Go for the most broader stuff possible with animation and comedy, and just hope they miss. And both did kind of bad. The Concept gives animation to Second Reel. Second Reel only gets 2 out of 5, and then Concept only gets 1 question correct. So the strategy of both managers worked. Just would have hoped, they would have hoped, especially Concept, this is where things are slipping. Only getting 1 question is personally for me the tilting point of why they lost.
That is absolutely the turning point. That is the moment that coming out of this round, it became a tangible possibility that the Concept would not be the champions leaving this match. And that's so hard to believe because Cody played that round correctly. He took away the biggest weakness of the Concept in animation and gave it to Second Reel, and Second Reel barely worked their way through it. Like, that's just the magic scenario of the thing that you're bad at is also bad for your opponent, and you got to capitalize on that. But then comedy, I guess I don't know if they weren't expecting those kind of comedy movies or if they just haven't seen like Billy Madison, but that round was really not good for the Concept, and that was definitely the turning point of the match.
Yeah, for sure, but like the reason why the manager suggested, because again, it's so broad, and he was right. It was so broad that, getting 1 question is not a lack of knowledge, but, Animal House, Dirty Rotten Scoundrels, The Great Race, Billy Madison, Superbad, except for Superbad, even that was in 2010s. These are not newer comedies. These are comedies that probably even before some of them were born, So... Right.
Yeah.
And yeah, fifth round, pick your poison round, which I really like this concept for a round. By the way, I like
Great round.
the way it's constructed, the way Warzone has done this round, because it really kind of it's the most studyable round. If I was the team that was going against Second Real next match, I would study what they put as their first, second, third, and fourth pointer, because it kind of indicates where they're good at and where you can match them next match.
Absolutely, and I think there was a little bit of an error made on the concepts part that I think does come back to cost them the game. They took the Second Real's biggest strength at their 4 to try and keep it away from them. I think that's a good strategy if you have more than a 5-point lead. If you have more than a 5-point lead, then take away their 4, and then that means they lose the chance to answer from their biggest strength at 4. But they did it with only a 1-2 point lead coming into that round, and I don't trust that pick. And I think Cody tried to advise them against that and put their own big strength at 4 because that's what they needed. I think Jake and Michael just thought that they could pull that off and that they could answer a Nolan at 4, even though that wasn't their own personal strength. But Nolan is a very deep category at this point. It's a very hard category. So anyone watching that hasn't played Warzone yet, beware. You think you're going to get a lot of easy Nolan questions in a Nolan category. Not necessarily.
No, but especially Nolan, it's not like he did like 30 movies, you know? He's still a fairly recent director, especially
only got 10.
Exactly. And after a while, you know, you run out of the questions, so you go into the minutia of it. And like except for like the Batman ones, there's so much you can do with Inception and so much you can do with Interstellar, especially Interstellar. I love that movie, and Dunkirk, but there's not much happening. So there's not much you can write as questions. So after a while, you know.
Especially when Inception has so much lore in one movie to draw from, and you're trying very hard to avoid the Dark Knight trilogy because those are the most popular movies he's ever made. And for these 4, getting a Dark Knight trilogy question at 4, you'd have to write a fandom level question, a harder fandom level question, just to make it, you know, competitive with the 4 they got in Inception, which I think is a fair 4. It's a hard 4. It's a brutal 4-pointer. But in a title match like this, it's what you have to expect.
Yeah, and one Second Real, going to the bad boys question. Thomas wins the belt, and that's because of French fries. French fries won them the belt.
That is honestly one of the most baller moments of this entire match, where they disagree, and it gives me a little bit of pause to them as a team. They definitely show they have great chemistry, obviously, but I think at that point there was like a bit of a miscommunication or just a misdirect, I guess. But they just or a disconnect, but they couldn't get on the same page. And Thomas just saying French fries final answer because he's that confident is the defining moment of that round. It's the defining moment for that team. Is Thomas kind of overstepping his boundaries as a team player for the greater good of that team? I think that's a bold move and it paid off, but that's also a very risky move if you try and do that again.
Yeah, for sure. But at the same time, personally, by the way, that was probably my favorite moment in the whole multiplex match that I've seen so far, because yes, it's so tangible, right? His colleague went with M&Ms, but he's like, I'm not sure did I see that in another movie. He wasn't confident, right?
Right.
But he wasn't going against Thomas's answer of French fries. And when he said he had a milkshake, so it's logical to have fries and milkshake together. For me, this makes sense. And he still kept saying, no, I don't know. And then he's like, yo, this is right. I'm going for it. He needed to do what he needed to do. And it's not something they should do again, but I can't blame him for doing it because they might be not champions if he hadn't done it.
Oh no, they absolutely aren't the champions if Thomas doesn't do that. That's the MVP moment for Thomas. Is he did, I wouldn't call it an illegal maneuver, but an unwise maneuver to pull off that win. And I don't think Thomas will do that again. But if you get in a situation where they can't agree, and what happens this time if Matt's right and Thomas does that, costs you the game, and it could cost you the belt. So it's going to come down to that comes down to communication and that team needing to maybe trust each other just a little bit more than they do in bigger game situations. But Thomas knew it, and he got that win for that team because of that.
Yeah, it's definitely something to watch to see if that that moment actually creates friction in the future once they disagree, because, Thomas being right this time could use that card again, and if it backfires on him, we might see a civil war coming in the Carterian.
Oh, absolutely. I wouldn't say that like it's going to lead to like a internal faction v faction something, but I think Matt and Thomas might have a couple of kinks to work out. They won the belt. They have to hold on to this belt. That's the thing. They have to defend from the winner of this tournament. And this tournament is filled with dangerous teams. So the concept is in that tournament, they could come right back and we get a trilogy. You could see Boatman and Zach Ford, Bombardment Society. If you watch that debut, that team is electric. You look at Cult Classics. They're a great team. There's so many teams in this tournament that could honestly, Wild Stallions is back, that could make a big run for that title. Second Wheel's got to be ready for any of them. And if they have a communication issue like this again, it could cost them the titles in the way that it got them the win this time.
Yeah. Who did you put your money on to be in the finals of the tournament?
If I had to put my money on it, it's a Concept versus Bombardment Society. Okay. I think that is going to be the finals. I have to admit, I have a little bit of bias. Bombardment is my team. But I have to put my faith in Zach and Boatman. I think that's an incredibly knowledgeable duo of guys. Don't ask me who wins between Concept and Bombardment, because that's going to be a bloodbath. But I think the Concept is guaranteed a spot in the finals. They're going to go right back. But it's the other side of the bracket that I think is going to be a war zone as to who's actually going to make it to the finals. And I think Bombardment's got the chops to do it. But I can't discount Wild Stallions on that side either.
Can't wait to see it happening, unfold, and I don't know enough about the teams. I'm still learning, so I'm not going to put my money right now, but I'm definitely gonna weigh in once the tournament starts, and
absolutely
cannot wait to see what's going to happen. Now, our second part of this show today is, well, my man you see here, Mr. Coho, is not only the co-host, but also, that kind of rhymes, co-host, anyways. But also is our special interviewee for this episode. So, yeah, let's start. I want to know a bit about your journey in Multiplex. When did you start coming in, and how did you start getting involved?
So, my journey with Multiplex is almost the journey of Multiplex itself. I was one of the founders of the league. I got brought in from a different league that kind of has since deteriorated and kind of just gone off on its own sort of problems, and a lot of us left that league because we saw a bunch of the problems happening, and I got to give a lot of credit to Kane McMillan, Tim Smith. They were the two that really said we want to build something new that still keeps the spirit of what we loved about the old one and try and fix the problems that we saw and make it a fun place for everyone. And in doing so, Kane fought to bring me on to help him create fandom, and we ran it for 2 3/4 seasons, or season and 3/4, something like that. Towards the end of the singles tournament last year, Kane had to step away. He got an internship at Disney World. So I brought on the then team champion Tim Bracala, who is now such an important integral part to fandom. He's so important to the running of that operation that I can't imagine him not being a part of it now. But me and Tim sort of keep running that ship. But like as a competitor, I was in the first singles tournament. Made it all the way to the semifinals and lost to Chance Ellison. Chance left right after that match, so we did a triple threat Ironman #1 contenders match between myself, the other semifinalists who lost to Robert Parker, Alex Warden, and Eli McKegg, who I had beaten in the quarterfinals, but we all had the same record. And I just came up short against Alex Warden in that match. And then after that, it's just kind of been this like back and forth of like win some, lose some, win some, lose some. But that comes with the territory of like running the league and then managing and then playing. I started managing at the beginning of season 2 with the Kingdom. And that faction was me, Jim Green, who was my partner at that time, Lucas Schildbach, who was the fandom team champion at that time, had to vacate because Paul left, and Dominic Rizzi. And the 4 of us made that faction. We added Sean Sandberg in the second half of the year, and we got him his title with Boatman, but Boatman was in a different faction. It was a weird situation. And then at the beginning of this year, we kind of storylines and everything changed the faction to a face faction. Came the Kingsmen, me and Cameron Holtzman, and Caleb Boatman and Thomas Scully, now Zach Ford, Cameron Redshaw, and Douglas Castle and Jack Pinchuk making up that faction. And now this is like a team that we really I think this team works better than the old one, because the old one was the team that was sort of a,
We'll talk about that faction
Right.
later on. But you said something interesting. You said you're going from heel to face. Is it working, in your opinion? Do you find yourself you're a good face? Because I heard some opinions from other people that said otherwise.
No, I think a lot of people don't think I'm a good face.
Okay.
I think it's growing pains. I've been a heel since day one, since I got here. I've been told by other people that I changed the way that heels were. That no one really did that when I showed up until I showed up and after. So being a heel sort of been something that I've only known, and then this season there was a necessity for faces, and with the people that I wanted to work with and manage, I made that commitment to turn characters, and it's been a process, but I think I'm starting to get the hang of it. I just can't say everything that I want to in a promo anymore. There's impulse burns that you have like abilities to take shots, and even certain challenges that you want to make as a manager you have to avoid for the sake of the character sometimes, because they're petty and they won't affect the outcome of the game. And I'm learning that with each performance in each match, how to be a better face. And I don't think I'm there yet. I don't think I'm near the top 20 faces that have ever existed in these leagues, but I'm working on it.
Or you could reinvent the face. Like the way I see it, you're kind of parallel. I'm too French to say that word. you're kind of similar to Ben Bateman. That, he was a heel. He still is kind of a heel a bit, but he has face tendencies, face qualities. But don't cross him. Don't piss him off. His heel is going to come back. But he's so much more of a gentleman at the same time now. I kind of see you doing that, You still have your heel tendencies, but you're surrounded by good people that, kind of like affects your soul a bit. You have a gentler side, but don't piss you off,
Fair. That's kind of what I've been trying to do. But it gets down to the nitty-gritty of learning to not take all the shots that you need to take in a promo. You don't have to do that anymore. And sometimes you have to put the character ahead of what you think might necessarily be best for the game. The thing about a heel that I always did is I would use the promo to play head games with the person that I have against my client, because some people in the league are super easy to mess with their confidence because they just don't have those mental walls up yet. And I found that I had a really good time, not a good time, but a good tendency to mess with them in a way that would affect their game and help my client. And whenever I play some of those people now, it's like, I can't do that because that's not my character. But I know that if I did that, I could benefit my player maybe even more. So it's a weird give and take that I have to learn.
Who's able to mess with your head instantly? That one person you can't put a wall.
No one.
No one. Okay,
no.
That confident. Okay.
I am that confident. No one messes with me in that way, because when I came into this entire league already the butt of the joke. So there's nothing that can be said that could mess with me in any way or like actually affect my ability to manage or play. I mean, Aaron J sits here and calls me cupcake like every day. I don't think that doesn't mess with me. At that point, I find it amusing. Cody Newberry is someone who thinks he messes with me a lot. He thinks he gets in there, but honestly, it's hard when you play your one of your best friends and they throw a barb at you and you just know it's not real. It's why when I stepped away from being a heel, I was kind of happy that I was, because I was having a harder and harder time being a full-on heel and throwing the barbs at my friends, because I didn't believe in the words I was saying anymore. So
now we're talking about face and heel, how you're trying to get away from heel. I might pull back the heel just a bit more because I want you to send a message to Criterion. Criterion thinks they're the shit. They're the Rushmore right now of Multiplex. They're starting to get strength, but I want you to send a message to them. What do you want to say, sir?
Listen, Criterion Collection. You're a bunch of old fossils. You think you guys are the shit? You're actually just shit. Look, Eanes, you almost cost Queller that game if you were wrong. So keep doing that, because next time it's not going to pay off for you. You're the truth. You're more like a lie. When it comes to Matt Queller, you ride Matt Queller's coattails like he's a horse at the Kentucky Derby. Like, my Lord, Matt, find a new partner that can actually help you, so that you can that way you don't have to go to a chiropractor every Friday because Thomas Eanes is breaking your back. Blockbuster, I love you guys. Why are you there? How dare you put yourselves on the Mount Rushmore when Mike Hanley thinks that Tim Burton directed 1978 Superman? Let's calm down there for a second when you say Mount Rushmore. I don't think Nazario Montenegro knows who stars in The Losers. So before you go off and call yourselves the GOATs, let's relax just a little bit, Criterion. You got a long ways to go before you're the GOAT. 2 belts, 1 team does not make you the greatest faction of all time.
All right, so you can hold down. You can turn back.
Oh, now that means I gotta go back to the badness room that Cam and Bowman put me in. They gotta reteach me the Lilo and Stitch badness meter all over again.
Yeah, do a bit of meditation. You'll be good. All right.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much on your thoughts and Criterion. I'll be on my side. I'm impressed. There might be not the best like GOATs, but they're having a hell of a run this year.
They're having a pretty good start. They're having an okay start. Yeah, I would say this is a faction that's definitely a bit of an improvement from the one that went out. And that's no offense to Nico. It's just from the faction that he's assembled, that Eanes and Queller have assembled. It's a team that is actually sort of working together and are all contendable, or players that you could see in a title contention somewhere. I put them as the 3rd place faction right now. Just on paper, I think they're the 3rd place faction. You can never discount Cody's faction. On paper, Cody's faction should have all the belts because he has Tuig and Tim. And Tim losing that title is crazy in general. That he didn't pull out that singles title is insane. And Tuig playing Scully is the match that I'm going to have to prepare Scully for the hardest ever, because we have no idea how that's going to go. The goal is just make sure Mischief defends from Knights of Ren because we know they're coming, and we want to get Scully the singles title because we think we can beat Rizzy. If anyone knows how to beat Rizzy, it's the guy who used to coach him. So I think that the Kingsmen have a really good chance at a lot of those belts, especially for this season with Boatman and Scully alone. Those two could honestly hold at least 3 belts together. And the goal is to get Zach Ford his first belt too in teams. The goal is to bring home all the belts. But we can't discount Cody. Cody's faction scares us, as always. And Brooklyn's faction would scare me if Brooklyn showed up. But
ooh, shots fired there, huh?
I'll take the shot. I'll take the cheap shot.
All right. Yeah, and you talked about your faction. Now, I just want to know, how did the whole faction come together? Because, like I said, you went from heel to face. They don't really seem, on paper, match your style, but it still happened. How did it happen?
So, behind the scenes, our faction, the Kingdom, never totally meshed. We never really all would get together and work. Jim and Lucas are not the type of people to sit down on a call for 3 hours and study. They're not the type of people to even study in general. They come in raw, natural knowledge, and that's what makes them unpredictable. And I think that's the charm of Jim and Lucas. I love those two. I love those guys. Rizzy is a dominant player, but he doesn't study. And the person on my faction the 2 guys that I found myself working with the most were Sean Sandberg and Cameron Holtzman. And the goal was to start over because those 2 were faces and they were on my heel faction playing the "we're here" and Coho's going to do all the talking card because we don't know how to be heels. And so we were like, we could start over the 3 of us, but then we have to get Boatman because Boatman is Sean's partner, but Boatman's other partner is Scully. And I had been watching them in real life. Boatman's like my best friend. Boatman and Scully are 2 of my dudes. So it was like, I wanted the whole squad together in one place. So when I got those 2, that was kind of a big deal. And then we lost Sean. Sean retired right before we could officially start the faction. So we had to get a partner for Boatman. And Zach Ford kind of reached out and said that he was coming out of retirement. He was ready to play again. And Boatman and I talked about it, and we thought that'd be a really good fit. And it's proven right so far. Cameron's cousin Jack said he wanted to play, and I had room, and I was interested. And same with Cameron Redshaw is a guy that we saw play in a couple of other leagues, and we thought he had potential. So brought him in. And when it came to Doug was someone that we saw his dedication and said that is someone that we need in the faction. Doug was someone that the moment we saw him, just how committed he is to trying to just put the best game out there that he can, to the point where his ability to sort of mascot our team is insane. He is honestly our trainer. Doug is our Mickey. When we come together, Doug sits there and he drills us with questions, and he helps us by bringing up key game plan points. He goes, "Hey, I noticed this," and I go, "Thanks," and like then we talk it out and we like come up with ideas. Doug is really like an assistant coach for me. Doug is a big part of the function of the Kingsmen, and we could not do it without Doug Castle. So
I'm going to make your life hard and maybe even start some drama. Let's say, what if, right? There's a storyline this season that your faction gets dissolved, but you get to keep one player of your current faction. Who would you choose?
That is so hard because technically 3 of those guys have to stay together or be unmanaged, and I can still technically manage them by proxy of other people. So if I have to take one person, but if I have to take the by proxy of manager rules into effect, I would keep Boatman, because then that means I still technically get to keep Zach Ford and Scully. But
everything has dissolved. Like, let's say the draft, Schmodown, right? All the teams that were not top 5 gets dissolved.
Right.
Let's say every team got dissolved. You would have to restart every team, so no one comes with anyone. You choose one player.
That's so hard, because that's like asking me what finger I like the most. Oh, it's fair. If I were a heel, absolutely. But it's hard. I honestly don't think I can answer. I honestly don't think I can pick. These guys are all so good that it's like it's honestly a Sophie's choice. I love Scully. I love Boatman. I love everyone on my team. So it comes down to what division do I think I could honestly coach someone to be the best that they could be, and I think it's Boatman or Scully or Cam. It's one of those 3 guys that just genuinely show the dedication, the passion of playing, and 2 of them are 4 division players, really. Boatman and Cam are 4 division players. Scully is a 2 division, but I've never seen anyone scarier in 2 divisions than Thomas Scully. So I'm going to cheat and say it's one of those 3. All right. I think I can't make a choice.
You've heard it today. Coho has a heart. He's not full heel. There's something pumping in there.
His heart grew 3 sizes that day.
All right. Well, this pretty much concludes our show today. Thank you very much, Coho, for your time. And do you have any projects? Anything you want to plug in today?
Check out Fandom Fights. That's honestly my baby. That's me and Tim. That's the thing we make. Run, and I've been doing that for almost 2 years now. So we're coming up on June 1st. It'll be the 2nd anniversary of Multiplex, and the first thing we made was Fandom. So we're getting ready for singles summer series tournament play. So there's a lot of playoffs going on. I'm playing Nazario coming up here real soon. Just check that out. Keep watching Fandom. I also produce Your List Sucks on Wednesdays with Cody. We have a whole lot of fun stuff coming up. There's actually a really big project we're going to announce very soon with Your List Sucks. We'll talk about that at some point soon, maybe in a month. We're ready to announce that. So yeah, but in general, just subscribe to Multiplex Entertainment on YouTube and the podcast feed.
Yeah, and I want to be on Your List Sucks one day. Submitted a list, never got our word back after, so they kind of forgot me. But one day I'll be on there. And
one day it'll happen.
You can find me nowhere but Twitter, because I like my social life private. But if you definitely want to contact me, we're at Schmo to the North on Twitter. If not, fuck off. All right. So that being said, thank you again. And till next week. Bye-bye.